Totally Football Show. Today, Club World Cup latest shock at the Hard Rock as Trent and Xavi's Real Madrid debut ends in draw in Al-Hilal Al-Hilarity. Meanwhile, Man City give Casablanca a sad ending. And Group G rivals Juve also win, beating a line, but also crossing a line, meeting Trump in bizarre old lady with old man Oval Office photo op. Also today, Premier League calendar drama, underperforming under-21s and made-up competition, raising more questions than it answers, must be the Inter-Totally Cup 2025 edition. It's the Totally Football Show. Thursday the 19th of June, listener, hello. It's another special remote show because we're repainting our studio, did you know? I don't know what the design's going to be, but as of next week, you'll be able to catch us on our YouTube channel and see... I think probably flowers. That's what I'm expecting, but who knows? Everything will be revealed next week. Duncan Alexander is here. Hey, Duncan. A little bit bleary-eyed there, Duncan.
Slightly, yeah. Yeah.
Up late watching Pachuca FC Salzburg?
I'll be honest, no. But I was working till quite late last night, and I'd just come back from some very hot cycling in Spain, possibly too hot. So I'm slightly fatigued, but, happy.
Well, that's the main thing. You've got some hot cycling on the way as well, haven't you? Because the athletics Tour de France coverage is very much helmed by you, I believe.
Yeah, very exciting. So, yeah, that all kicks off on July the 5th, and there will be plenty to get your teeth and cleats stuck into if that's the sort of thing you enjoy.
If a football match can be said, or a competition can be said to kick off, what does a cycling competition generally do?
Clip in, maybe.
Yeah, definitely.
Clip in and set off.
Lovely stuff. Carl Anka, nice to see you.
Hi, James.
Take your break from saving up for that Man United season ticket.
Absolutely. I'm changing to a slightly cheaper form of balsamic vinegar just to watch the pennies.
Excellent. And Benji Lanyado is with us as well, of Pickfair, CEO thereof. And also Benji in... first game of our Inter-Totally later on. Are you excited?
Sure. Yeah. It's actually a grudge match because Julien has knocked me out, I think, twice before.
Really?
So, I mean, you might have to sort of like hold us back virtually as the questions are firing.
Okay. Excellent. Headlines. Listener, since our last show, what has happened? Well, in the Euro under-21s, England and Germany met Wednesday night in the final group game. Germany were already through to the last 8. Lee Carsley's side needed a point to progress. They didn't get it, even though the Germans obligingly fielded their B team. However, results elsewhere meant that England's under-21s still went through. Very different story in the under-19s. Did anyone catch the remarkable game between, again, Germany and England's side in the group stage of the competition in Bucharest? The Young Lions going 5-1 down after 48 minutes, but storming back with 4 goals in 11 minutes to get a 5-5 draw.
It is a remarkable highlights package. When you watch football at that sort of youth level or the youth version of these tournaments, there's always a sort of 10, 15-minute period where midfield starts being more of a casual suggestion and games be more of a basketball game of toing and throwing. And that sort of 4-goal flurry is remarkable to watch. So highly recommend hunting it down if you can.
Highest scoring game in the history of the under-19 Euros. Excellent. Both teams could be eliminated on Friday, though, when the final group games take place. England facing the already qualified Netherlands, while Germany meet Norway. Meanwhile, transfer news. If you enjoyed last year's Barcelona signed Dani Olmo but can't play because they spunked their wage allowance on other people, fun and games, then you'll love word that Barcelona have now signed or reached personal agreement with Nico Williams and apparently don't see his €60 million release clause as a problem, even though, says the Spanish league, they already are way beyond their wage budget on their other supposed signings.
This one's a really weird one in that, well, how many more bad things can Barcelona press say about Andre ter Stegen in order for him to either leave or accept a pay cut? Because that appears to be their big game plan now of we're going to bring in Nico Williams because ter Stegen is leaving. And ter Stegen, who is a captain, seems very content with things. I suppose you can go have a nice chat with Rafinha about what it's like when, or Frankie de Jong about what it's like when Barcelona press don't like you anymore, but you are content to stay because Barcelona is a lovely place to live and play football. So, also.
Ter Stegen very much goalkeeper, but the key factor here is his wages. Nico Williams, if there's a player he would be displacing in football terms, it might be the aforementioned Rafinha, who, as I recall, did pretty well for Barcelona last season. But hey, what do I know about transfer strategies? Very good. We'll keep an eye on that one. Meanwhile, in the Club World Cup, dominating everyone's attention, we've now reached the point where all 32 teams have played. Headlines since our last podcast included Champions League runners-up Inter drawing their opening match against Monterrey with Sergio Ramos doing trademark Sergio Ramos things, opening the scoring in that. Man City beat Wydad Casablanca 2-0. Goals from Foden and Jeremy Doku. While group rivals and White House hostage video subjects Juventus also won their opener against Al Ain of the United Arab Emirates 5-0. So they're actually topping the group. And then there was Real Madrid and then one more draw with Al-Hilal. Real Madrid now excitingly trailing FC Salzburg in their group, or Red Bull Salzburg to give them their common name, after the Austrian side beat Pachuca in a game which Benji is especially keen to tell us about later on. Much, much later on, I'm guessing, listener. Anyway, let's begin with events at the Hard Rock. Al-Hilal goalkeeper Bono's dramatic penalty save right at the end of their opening round clash with Real Madrid. Some pro bono defending, I'm calling it. We're joined now by our friend James Horncastle, who was present, of course he was, at the Hard Rock for this quite historic match. Hey, James.
Hey, Jimbo.
Yeah. Wow, you just keep clocking up the big encounters there at the Club World Cup. This, for example, was the first time ever that an Asian team has avoided defeat against a European side since the Club World Cup began 25 years ago. How about that?
I didn't know that. I mean, partly because I thought that Al-Hilal would be decent, maybe not as good as they actually proved to be. But, you know, when you get rid of Neymar and your starting 11 is still worth kind of 350 million euro, and you have a coach who you are paying sort of 25 million a year, maybe they're quite good. So, it was surprising, I suppose, that Simone Inzaghi was only sort of 2.5 weeks ago, sort of on the sidelines for Inter in that Champions League final, which they lost 5-0 to PSG, and has not had a lot of time to work with these players. But even sort of playing a system that is not really his own, because they played with a back four. He's always played with a back three. They looked like the more cohesive unit, the team that knew what its jobs were better than Real Madrid, who also have a new coach in Xabi Alonso and a few new players.
There have been some games that haven't drawn the crowds, that haven't perhaps lit the imagination in this tournament so far. This, though, very much contrary, absolutely banging affair with a raucous Real Madrid support there at the Hard Rock.
Yeah, it was a very big Madrid crowd. Madrid themselves were kind of boasting before the game that they had sold 60 of the 65,000 tickets available for it. So, and you were really struck how big Real Madrid are in the US. Yeah, they've been sort of touring here quite regularly over the last few years, but America just likes winners, and Real Madrid are the ultimate winners. And it was interesting watching them in Miami as well, because so much is made of kind of the Hispanic Latino community here, and how much they kind of love their football. And I think people have looked at Messi moving to Inter Miami as being just like the perfect alignment of all these things. But Messi's Argentine, and a lot of Hispanic and Latinos here are from Colombia. They're from Cuba. They're from other South American countries that don't like Messi's Argentina, but they do like the most successful Spanish-speaking side of all, which is Real Madrid. They were probably a little bit disappointed by some aspects of Madrid's performance against Al-Hilal. They came to see a win. They didn't see a win. Madrid have spent quite a lot of money this summer without addressing the real issue, which is they still don't have a Toni Kroos, and 40-year-old Luka Modric will leave for AC Milan at the end of this tournament.
They have got a Trent. What did you make of his debut? Stats show that Al-Hilal were repeatedly targeting his side of the field.
Yeah, they were. I mean, Trent, I think it was quite an awkward debut, really, because he had Rodrigo playing in front of him, and Real Madrid at this moment in time just don't really press like Liverpool did. So he's expected to do more defending. He's a little bit more exposed. You could see that in some of his early forays in the team. He was trying to go into the midfield and didn't know where he needed to be all of the time. And they did target him. I mean, on that first goal, which was disallowed for Renan Lodi, that comes from kind of Al-Hilal's centre back Kalidou Koulibaly kind of marauding forward, and then Trent being drawn to the ball and then just playing it into the position where Trent should have been in. And luckily, Renan Lodi was offside. But also, you were kind of struck by how Al-Hilal, both of their fullbacks are, one's played for Barcelona, Man City, Bayern Munich, Inter, and Juventus, and that's João Cancelo. The other's Renan Lodi, who's played for Atletico Madrid. So, those two boys are not really fazed by playing Real Madrid and playing their wide players, and sort of going for their fullbacks. And so Trent was exposed a little bit at times, but Xabi Alonso very diplomatic afterwards, sort of saying, it's early days, it was hot out there, we're playing at 3:00, it's crazy. So we'll have to see how it develops for Trent.
Okay, we'll have to see how it develops for Al-Hilal. You mentioned the amount of money that their squad costs, and there's all sorts of other names in there, like Ruben Neves, who got the equaliser after Gonzalo Garcia had opened the scoring, somewhat against the run of play, to put Real Madrid in the lead. Then late on, there was that controversial penalty in, I think, the 89th minute, which saw Fede Valverde step up with a chance to give Real Madrid an opening day win. Bono, though, throwing an arm out just before he took the kick, perhaps winning the mind game battle, I'm not sure, but a nice save anyway. And I think a fair result, 1-1. Broadly speaking, from this performance, how far do you think Al-Hilal could go?
Well, I didn't really hear them mentioned all that much in the build-up to this tournament. I think, much of the focus has been on, can the South American teams step up? And, that's probably a legacy of just the last iteration of this tournament where, the only competition for the European teams was with the South Americans. And there were some really, really good affairs in the kind of 60s, battles in Buenos Aires and that sort of thing. So I think people were kind of sleeping on Al-Hilal a bit. Didn't maybe expect much from Simone Inzaghi after losing 5-0 to PSG, after only having 2.5 weeks with this squad, after Neymar's departure. But, he was kind of saying yesterday that in the first half, Marcus Leonardo had a couple of chances. They could have been 2-0 up maybe at half-time. And so he felt there was some regret, but he was really confident. He was confident going into the game that they would put in a really good performance, and said that, they didn't have Alexander Mitrovic. Imagine if they'd only had Mitrovic available. They could have absolutely buried Real Madrid. I actually think they can do pretty well. I don't think they're a match for PSG, but I think in these conditions they'll probably fancy themselves against most other teams. Sort of PSG, and I'm not sure what to make of Bayern. I wasn't convinced by them in the Champions League. They've obviously put 10 past Auckland, but I think they'd back themselves against everyone but PSG.
Just with all the stuff that's been going on, what's been the best bit for you so far?
Boca was great. Boca have come to every game in Miami, even though they've only played one game in Miami. So their fans have sort of decided to make Miami home for the summer. There are lots of Argentines here. You can't go sort of 5 minutes in an Uber without seeing an Argentine pizza place, an Argentine steakhouse, and all that sort of thing. So you've heard Boca songs even at sort of Inter Miami against Al-Ahly. It was true yesterday. Real Madrid Al-Hilal. You heard Boca songs. So FIFA owe these Boca fans quite a lot for bringing the atmosphere. And then sort of generally, like when you are at these games, the games do feel like they matter, and the fans that are at the games, they don't feel like they're tourists or just plastic fans. They actually feel like they're legitimate fans who know the songs, who come out singing. And so you feel like you're at a football event. But the strange thing is that, sort of the Hard Rock Stadium is in the middle of nowhere. You can't really reach it by public transport. So it's got 26,000 car parking spaces. So sort of, that means like football is kind of on an island here in Miami. Miami's so big, it's so vast that, if you're not at the stadium, you wouldn't know there's a game going on, unless you're on Miami Beach when some Boca fans are there. So it's weirdly discombobulating because, in all of the hours that you're not at a football stadium, you're just sort of, even if you're in a sports bar, they've got ESPN on, or FX Sports, and Club World Cup is not on those kind of traditional mainstream media sports channels that they have in here in the US. So it's, you almost feel like you pass into another dimension when you go to the Hard Rock Stadium.
Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. Well, enjoy wherever you're going to be over the next day or two, and the Club World Cup as it rolls on. And we'll catch up with you hopefully soon, James. James Horncastle. Duncan, did we leave something out in that Real Madrid Al-Hilal?
Yeah, the best bit. The referee whistling for a corner for Real Madrid, because Bono had held onto the ball for the 8 seconds that now triggers a corner under the new IFAB regulations. So, and Real Madrid kind of took it a bit hurriedly. I know it was injury time, but it would have been. We wait to see a team actually score from one of those, which will, I'm sure, cause much gnashing of teeth. But yeah, it was good to see it bit in action at least.
The corner awarded for goalkeeper hanging onto the ball too long. One of the many exciting innovations of this tournament. The others include RefCam. Not sure how you feel about that. Beginning to see that increasingly folded into the coverage. Oh, and also, probably your favourite, the individual walk-ons. Will it catch on?
It's delayed some early kickoffs, hasn't it? So
it's delayed every game, I think. Yeah.
I think, European soccer post Last Dance has stolen some American openings. So at both Euro 2020, Euro 2024, stadiums would play the Chicago Bulls opening music because they're trying to build an atmosphere there. But I think that's probably as far as it can go there.
But also American sports, they don't do walk-ons unless it's, I don't know, the Stanley Cup final or whatever. I mean, skate-ons in that case. But do you know what I mean? They don't do it for a regular fixture. It does seem madness to me. I'm just glad they don't do it for the second half as well. But anyway.
Can't see it catching on in League Two. Can't see, on a cold day at Barnet, 22 men slowly coming out. Just get on with the game, to be honest.
Now, Benji, Real Madrid's next game, we'll see them take on Pachuca in Group H. Pachuca, who lost to Red Bull, but don't call them that, FC Salzburg, on kind of Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning, depending upon your geolocation. You wanted to talk about this. Fire away.
Yeah, don't worry, not for too long. I think the Pachuca Real Madrid game is going to be in North Carolina, which is okay. But this game was in Ohio, and there were in, I think it was in Cincinnati's stadium.
It was.
And 5,000 fans turned up, and I think it's quite disappointing. I've been looking forward to seeing the Mexican teams in this competition because obviously it's there's a huge Mexican diaspora in America. And what I don't understand is why they haven't put them down in like California or Texas or something like that. Anyway, they went to Ohio, which is, if you rank American states for how Mexican they are, it's the 40th most Mexican state. So
is that right?
Feel like a bit of a, yeah. I just think there's a few like, stadium choices that are just a bit baffling. And I thought this was one of them because sure, Pachuca are the CONCACAF, Champions League holders, Mexican team playing in America. Anyway, that was, no more moaning about attendances for now until about.
Okay, that was a game which saw for the second day running a match suspended because of lightning strikes, by the way. It took about an hour to get the second half back underway, at the end of which Salzburg emerged as winners.
Yeah, that's right. And talking of, lightning strikes, there was a fantastic strike from Oscar Gluck in this game from Salzburg to open open the scoring. And I thought it was quite interesting. Obviously this is happening in the same week as the Euro under 19, the under 19 Euros. And the last under 19 Euros, he was one of the real stars for Israel. They got to the final and lost to England, of course. We win quite a few of these. But he scored against England in the final, and there was a lot of competition for his signature, and he ended up at RB Salzburg. And actually, he's played incredibly well there last couple of years. I think 20 goals in 70 games. And he's only just turned 21. So I think really, definitely one to watch. And I would be very unsurprised if he's, turned up at, let's pick a team at random, Leipzig, in the next season or so.
Group G, Man City trailing Juventus on goal difference after Wednesday night's action. Whoever, by the way, finishes second in this group might well be facing Real Madrid in the knockout phase, by which point Real Madrid might have got their act together, as they generally do in competitions. Man City 2-0 winners against Wydad. A goal after 1 minute and 51 seconds from Phil Foden in what is seen as an important tournament for him, with Jeremy Doku adding the other one. Rico Lewis picking up a red card later on, so he'll miss the next game, which is against Al-Ain. The good news there for Man City, Al-Ain are not very good, and they got pumped 5-0 by Juventus on Wednesday night, actually Thursday morning. Juve looking absolutely brilliant under Igor Tudor. Thoughts on Man City? Who saw this game?
I was watching this game. Fans of the show might remember our exciting debate last week about whether this tournament was in this season or last season or next season. Well, Phil Foden said, I didn't play very well last season and I wanted to start the new season well. So he's classing this as 25-26, which is technically incorrect, but he did look a lot sharper, and not only scored but also assisted Jeremy Doku. Rangers looked really good, I thought. Cherky less so, but I thought City, kind of looked a bit more back to their old selves. Defensively, still a little bit shaky. I mean, they had Vitor Reis playing at centre half, and he looked a little bit wayward at points. But generally, pretty positive start for them, and you can tell that they are using this as a real sort of reset, and obviously have a lot of new players to do that with. So pretty good.
And obviously, Marmoush from last season and Savinho from beginning of last season is making me increasingly convinced that this is going to be Pep's last season there, because it reminds me of what Klopp did at Liverpool in that kind of the couple of seasons before he left. He kind of padded out the squad with really good players. I remember there was one summer when they got Gakpo and Nunez, and they already had sort of 4 attacking players that they could use there. It feels like Pep is just throwing a lot of talent into this squad and saying, like, I'm leaving you with all the resources. I think it's time for someone else to work this out.
Interesting. They've got an ominous glow to them. On the 16-minute mark, Pep Guardiola brought on Erling Haaland and Rodri, and you're going, really? Surely? This is the greed that they talk about in the Holy Scripture. They look good. They look as if some of the frailties we saw for the majority of last season have solutions in game. Rodri was there and he looked a little bit like Rodri. Okay, there was some ring rust, but he had a little phase where he carried the ball from the halfway line, did a dribble or two, and then chipped it into the final third. And the pass didn't quite get there, but you go, there it is. That was one of the big problems with ball progression they had. I'm going to call it, for them, it's still this season, but it's last season for me.
Last season.
Everything Yep. So for some of the problems they had last season, Reinders is going to be a delight if you're a Manchester City fan. I think the partnership he will have with Rodri going forward will be very, very, very good. And they've just they're slowly approaching a critical mass of footballing talent again. And I disagree, Benji. This is the sort of thing where Pep Guardiola gets all this talent and goes, why would I leave? I've got all these new action figures.
The short-term future for Man City, as mentioned, sees them face Al-Ain next. But after that, Thursday, in a week's time, essentially, they'll be up against Juventus, who, while Man City looked even better in their game against Al-Ain. Al-Ain had Rui Patricio, the veteran former Wolves and Roma keeper, who'd signed just for this tournament. Had faced 4 shots in the first half, conceded on all of them as Juve romped to their first 4-0 halftime lead since 2018. Juve, who been pretty stodgy for a couple of seasons now, looking absolutely enthralling in this first half and finishing the game off 5-0 with all their front three scoring. Rando Kolomoani got a brace, so did Conceição, and the other goal from Yildiz, and a brilliant goal that was too. Looking less good on the Juve front was their pre-game, which saw them on the very afternoon of the match shuffling into the Oval Office in the White House to stand awkwardly behind Donald Trump as he let rip on a variety of topics, including countdown to World War III, transgender athletes, which he quizzed Juve about, and probably the most awkward moment of all, and just generally did themselves absolutely no favours. The players looked absolutely miserable at being there. Weston McKennie in particular, who had to shake Trump's hand, and I think said that there was no choice in the matter. They were told they had to go. John Elkann, who basically has retaken control of Juventus now, another of the Agnelli dynasty, has a number of dealings, shall we say, with Donald Trump. And interesting to see the team suddenly wheeled in there only hours before they kicked off in their Club World Cup opener. Just bizarre.
No other way to put it. Absolutely bizarre. Donald Trump talking about how US military planes are undetectable because they have stealth, while Weston McKennie and Timothy Ware stand there looking very, very awkward. I think Adam Crafton's written a piece that you can see on The Athletic, and I believe Timothy Ware described the experience as a bit weird, which, I mean, he is the son of a diplomat, so you can see it.
Yeah.
Very diplomatic tone there.
Yeah. President of Liberia, of course. Also present at the historic meeting was FIFA President Gianni Keep Politics Out of Football Infantino. So no dichotomy there. Excellent.
Have we talked about how Infantino's name is on the Club World Cup trophy twice?
Twice, yeah.
Oh.
Twice. So in the engraving there is a bit that refers to Infantino as the founding president of the tournament, and there is also another bit that refers to him as the tournament's inspiration. I'm sure some of our listeners have already seen that you can get an Infantino sticker in the CWC sticker album pack, where it refers to him as the emblem of the tournament as well. So I never thought I'd miss the low-key skullduggery of Sepp Blatter, but there are just some days where I'm just like, turn it in.
Elsewhere at the Club World Cup, I mean, loads of things, but briefly, I mentioned Inter drawing with Monterrey and Sergio Ramos opening the scoring there, and it's one of the delights, I think, of the Club World Cup, seeing all these old stages. Sergio Ramos, very much still effective, others not so much. Cavani not even featuring for Boca in their game.
The Monterrey starting lineup is an absolute triumph. I saw Sergio Canales and Oliver Torres in that starting lineup, and I mean, I'm sure there's certain listeners that have played various football computer games that have special feelings towards both of those players. But that Monterrey starting lineup was a who's who of dudes naming old sports players and just having the best time.
On the other end of the age spectrum, Joe Bellingham made his Dortmund debut back on Tuesday in Borussia Dortmund's 0-0 draw with Fluminense, who for their part fielded 41-year-old Thiago Silva and a 44-year-old goalkeeper Fabio. And we should shout out as well for River Plate, who, while Boca ended up drawing that game with Benfica 2-2, River Plate with 3-1 winners over Japan's Urawa Red Diamonds on Tuesday.
By the way, can I just say one more thing about the Club World Cup? That
Yes.
I know I've been moaning about attendance. I thought Flamengo versus Esperance looked like it had a proper atmosphere, and I loved the massive banks of Esperance fans behind the one end and Flamengo at the other end, and you could see that they weren't actually like segregated, but there was, even though it was only the bottom tier of whatever gigantic huge NFL stadium it was, right? It was a proper game with proper atmosphere, and I think Flamengo are going to be, both teams I think it'll be really fun to watch for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, FIFA have done that thing where all the fans at that ground, and you could argue they should have just picked a smaller ground, but they've shifted everyone down to the lower tier, and the director's been very clever in that game in particular at framing the fans so you would never guess. A lot of people talking about the fact that they had tickets, not specifically for this game, but other matches. I think the Botafogo one up at Lumen Field was that they had tickets kind of along the halfway line in the top tier, and suddenly got an email from FIFA saying, no, you've been relocated to behind the goal on the bottom tier, but equal value tickets.
That makes sense.
Yeah, just for, optics.
Yeah, it looked good. Yeah, but I've got to say they got the optics right in that case for that game, because I thought it looked like it had a proper atmosphere.
I don't think come the end of the tournament that we're going to be talking about the opening round and the low attendances anymore. I think that the story will have moved on so much. I think that this will be a really successful tournament. But Duncan, sorry.
Yeah, I think we need to be careful about sort of attendance bashing too much, given at Euro 96, some of the attendances were abysmal. You know, that Bulgaria, Romania, at St James's Park, a hotbed of football fans, only 19,000 people turned up to see Stoichkov take on Georgi Hadji. So I think it's a bit unfair.
But it is low. It is low. It's 56% attendance so far, which is like, it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that is equally good. It's a brand new
MK
tournament.
Dons would kill for that, mate.
Can I mention just a couple more curios, because that's one of the things that I've enjoyed most about this tournament. It's like, look, Belotti's playing for Benfica. Like, there's lots of kind of players where you're like,
briefly,
like Yeah. Well, but Belotti, by the way, scored 11 goals in 4 years. Sort of mad cliff he's fallen off. But actually, another two things that slightly blew my mind in the Boca Benfica game. First of all, was that Otamendi is the fifth most capped Argentinian footballer of all time. How's that happened? Like, he's just been there for ages.
He's old reliable.
Yeah, he is old reliable, yeah. And then the other one, and this is lovely, is that Di Maria is about to have a palindromic beginning and end to his career. So he started his career at Rosario and then moved to Benfica, and he's finishing his career by going from Benfica to Rosario. That warmed my heart when I realised that.
Amir Baka says World Club Cup gets much criticism, but offers interesting games with lots of, to Tracy, Amid, lots of fixtures that you would never, ever see outside of perhaps a competition that you yourself would build on your FIFA tournament on your PlayStation.
I think if you are a listener to this podcast, so you've not watched much Saudi Arabian League, I think this is perhaps the best gauge of what the top four or the top, the PIF owned Saudi Arabian clubs now have to offer and compete. It's an interesting barometer there. So the work Inzaghi's done, I think it was quite interesting watching Inzaghi play against a Xabi Alonso team, and neither of them used the back three. That was an interesting tactical curio for me. And if you're a Man United fan, you're going, hang on, wait, what? So I want to be really, really careful here because, and it's not just with football fandom, but as I'm getting slightly older and slowing down a little bit, I'm trying to get better at calling fewer things crap or rubbish and dismissing them. And I'm trying to instead say, I can see the appeal, but it's not for me. Or this probably isn't my tempo. Or I'm probably not the target audience for that. And when I look at the reasons why I'm perhaps not watching the Club World Cup with the same intensity or fervour that I'm watching the Champions League or the FA Cup, that's probably to do with the fact that I've watched 9 months worth of European football and I'm knackered, rather than this tournament being bad as it is right now. And I'm sure there are many fans across the world and listening to this who this is their tempo, this is their speed, and they are enjoying it. And all power to you. I'll probably check back in. And I'm sure there's going to be quite a few fans that will try and check back in around like the quarterfinals when some of the
this is it. It's a bit like the Europa League that you kind of don't pay that much attention to at the group stages, but once it gets into the knockout stages, like, hold on, this is pretty serious and good fun, and there's good teams there. And actually, just I think Carl's point about benchmarking the Saudi League is a really good one. To the extent that it, and this is purely on football terms, obviously, but it made me think, actually, do you know what? It's not so mad saying that maybe Ivan Toney can still be in an England squad, if he's playing in a league that has got some actual decent quality in it. Really, I think that's a very good point.
Excellent. Well, we'll have more on the Club World Cup in our next show, but lots of big games coming up between now and then. Also writing in, though, is Dickie Byrne, who says, no Boxing Day football for the Premier League. Is the game gone? This follows the release of the next season's fixtures, or is it this season's fixtures?
This
Duncan.
season, well, yeah. Well, it's sort of a quirk, and as our colleague Phil Buckingham explained on The Athletic yesterday, what it is because Boxing Day, December 26th, is on a Friday, then the fixtures are sort of automatically set to the 27th as the weekend fixtures, rather than normally the Boxing Day fixtures would be a midweek set of fixtures. So what's going to happen is that the TV companies, our friends, are going to move some of those fixtures, quite a few of them, I imagine, to the Friday, aka Boxing Day, and we will have Boxing Day football after all, and the game will not have gone quite yet. So it's fine.
Magnificent.
July 9th, I believe, is the date for when the TV broadcasters start carving things up. So wait and see.
Wait and see. July the 9th. Many thanks for that. Man United, by the way, Carl, as you'll have spotted, ranked by The Athletic as having the most difficult start to the season in terms of fixtures. Obviously, everyone plays everybody else twice. But if you're a manager who's coming off a historically bad campaign and looking for some validation, a tough run of fixtures at the start of the tournament isn't the best thing.
No, it's not the best start. Some comparisons have been drawn to David Moyes' season in charge of Manchester United, where he had a particularly difficult start as well. Look, you've got to start your campaign with a game against Arsenal at home. If you are a Premier League watcher who remembers the 90s, that's really exciting because that used to be a match that would define the title race. Now you get to start off with it. A very early Manchester derby as well. And then a couple of weeks after that first five, you're off to Anfield. So no rest for the wicked, Mr. Amarin. I hope you have some new set-piece routines because you're going to need them.
Okay. You'll also need a certain amount of money to see any of this if you are a match-going spectator. The cheapest ticket for a Premier League game at Old Trafford has gone up, Carl, is this right, by 50%, a move described by the Man United Supporters Trust as a fresh kick in the teeth, although I imagine they must have said fresh kick of the tooth if,
It's galling. It's really difficult. Andy Mitten has done a very good interview with Omar Barada in United We Stand. We've run snippets of that in The Athletic right now. And Barada, in his very Harvard Business School way of speaking, it talks about how money has to be found. And how they've apologized for the previous ticket increases by saying it was communicated poorly, not by apologizing for actually increasing prices. And there's always this counter argument about how there was a ticket price freeze for the better part of a decade, and this is the way you keep revenue going because you want to keep season ticket prices at a certain level, and the best way to recoup those, I'm putting in air quotes, losses, is to charge more for the individual ticket. However, I'm sat here going, you are charging me more money for a worse product. This is the first Premier League season Manchester United will play without Europe since 14-15, and this is on top of everything else going on in the world where you are paying more money for a worse product. I'm sure someone is now furiously clicking away in the comment section going, like The Athletic, snarf. I don't like it. It sucks, and I very much agree with what Muster's saying.
Benji, were you excited for your fixtures briefly? West Ham?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever been more apathetic about West Ham. So not really. The thing that's interesting is that we got Leeds on the last day of the season, and which made me think, could that be a sort of relegation playoff? But yeah, let's see.
Point of Curo, Evan Ferguson's 6-month loan. What happened there?
I'm not convinced it happened. I've got nothing to say. It will be one of the most forgettable. In fact, I mean, I've forgotten it. Who is Evan Ferguson?
Fascinating. Thank you.
Just to quickly flag up, if you were listening to Daniel's story talking about Sheffield Wednesday on Tuesday and their perilous position currently, you may be interested to know that because of their failure to pay their own staff, the EFL have now banned the Owls from paying any transfer fees for any players until January 2027. So situation precipitating there in Sheffield. Very good. Well, we're almost at the end of today's podcast, but you'll be excited, listener, perhaps I certainly am, to know that we're going to finish off today with the very first matchup in this year's, or is it next year's, or is it last year's Intertotally Cup. Match 1 is on the way. It's time, everybody. Intertotally Cup, match 1. Let's meet our contestants. Yes, indeed, Julien. He's had no sleep for the last week. How are you, sir?
Hello, guys. I'm very well. Thank you very much.
Well, indeed. Your PSG based tout en la Champions League, excuse my French, but will this be a 5-0, Julien?
Well, this is a bit of a classic, isn't it, in our game, so I just can't wait for it.
Okay, Jules is a perennial semi-finalist, sometimes putting out the man he's about to face in this opening match of the Intertotally Cup. Benji, thank you so much for taking part. Benji, who was runner-up, of course, in this competition, listener, you're just thinking to yourself, in 2021, so plenty of pedigree for you as well. How do you feel about this rematch with Julien Laurens? What's the history here?
Well, I actually knocked him out on the way to that final in 2021, but he's whooped me twice in a row, and I've got to listen. I'm just a civvy, James, right? At best, I am the Conference League to Julien's Champions League. He's the hardest working man in football journalism.
You're the Auckland City, and he's obviously
that's it. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I just hope the fans have a great time along the way.
Right.
It's a great thing for the CV,
Brilliant. You are the Prince of Pickfair. You can get Prince at Pickfair, I think. Is that right or not?
Oh, yeah, you can. And actually, you can set up your own photography print store in under a minute. So anyone can get prints on Pickfair.
Amazing. Right. 5 questions on football are coming up to each of you. Then, if required, we'll go to a tiebreaker. And just to let you know, whoever does come through today's match will be facing either Tom Williams or Charlie Eccleshare in the semi-finals. So with that, let's get underway with question 1. Julien, you're up first. Julien, question 1. For which Saudi Pro League team does Ivan Toney currently play?
Al-Ali?
Is correct. You're on the scoreboard. Benji, your first question. For which Saudi Pro League team does N'Golo Kante currently play?
Oh. Al Nassr?
I'm afraid not. It is. Oh, actually, Julien, do you know?
Yeah, Al-Ittihad, but on loan to Al-Hilal right now, I believe.
So, on to question 2. Julien, in which of the following countries has Roy Hodgson not managed? Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, Belgium, or Norway?
Belgium?
Is correct. Julien, on to 2 points. Benji, your second question. In which of the following countries has Alan Pardew not managed? Netherlands, Greece, Bulgaria, and Switzerland?
Switzerland.
Is correct. 2-1 the score as we move on to question 3. Jules, which World Cup winner's career path is this? FC Homburg, Kaiserslautern, Werder Bremen, Bayern Munich, Lazio.
Miroslav
career
Klose?
path began.
Miroslav Klose? No.
Is correct.
No. Yes.
Jules moves on to 3 points. Benji, you need this. Which World Cup winner's career path goes Nantes, Sampdoria, Real Madrid, Middlesbrough, Olympiacos, Servette, Bastia?
Christian Carambeau.
Boom! 3-2 the score as we move on to question 4. Jules, what disrespectful behaviour from a match official did Sheffield United manager Chris Wilder take exception to in 2024?
I don't know. So I will say. So it's something a referee did to Chris Wilder that he didn't like. Is that the
A
question?
match official did this in front of Chris Wilder.
Okay. In front, he celebrated.
Nope. He ate a sandwich, Jules. Far worse than celebrating. He ate a sandwich.
Okay.
You'd rather have your leg broken than that, I think. Your question,
Yeah.
Benji, and for this, with this, the chance to pull level in today's quiz. Alan Pardew was given a 7-match suspension for headbutting an opposing player while Newcastle manager in 2014. Who was that player? You can see it, can't you?
Yeah. Did you say who the opposition team was?
I did not.
I'm not even going to guess. Don't know.
Jules, do you know the answer? David Mailer of Hull. So, with the score poised at 3-2 in favour of Julien Laurens, we move on to the final question. Remember, there's a tiebreaker if they're tied after 5. With that in mind, let's start with you, Benji. Which current player is the all-time Premier League top goalscorer for 2 different clubs?
He's a current player. He's currently playing.
Current player. Listeners haven't got all day.
I got this. No, I don't know. Pass.
No? Pass? And with that, Jules,
Hold on. Current player, 2 different Premier League clubs, top scorer. This is really annoying.
Benji, your answer, please.
Put me out my misery. Don't know.
It's Chris Wood. Chris Wood currently top goal scorer for both Burnley and Nottingham Forest. Jules, your question 5 would have been which club's top 2 all-time Premier League goal scorers are Australian?
Leeds United.
Isn't that just the way?
It's Leeds.
Leeds, yeah. But there you go. Benji, I'm afraid that's 3 for 3 for you against Jules.
Yeah, it is. It is. But listen, he deserved that. Great answers.
Great answers. Julien, you are the player who has participated in more Intertotally Cups without ever winning the tournament than any other. Could this be your year?
If it's PSG's year, that could well be my year as well in this quiz, So I have to believe it. I've got Luis Enrique.
Right.
Just he's been coaching me for the last few days, getting ready for this big clash with Benji. So I believe in Luis.
All right. We'll have another exciting matchup in the Intertotally Cup next Thursday on the Totally Football Show. But for now, it's many thanks to Benji and congratulations to Julien Laurens. And with that, listener, we come to the end of today's show. Hope you enjoyed it. Many thanks, as I mentioned, to Benji, obviously to Jules as well, to producers Charlie and Liam, to Duncan and Carl Anka as well, and you for listening in. We'll be back with you on Monday with a Totally Gold episode, and then on Tuesday with the latest on all the big stories around football. Do hope you'll be joining us for that and that you have a great weekend. In the meanwhile, for now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.